The Atlantic tropical season finally awoke from its slumber on Monday with the development of Tropical Storm Francine. That got me thinking about Climate Watch 3 weeks ago when Ben and I put a phrase on our forecast map that made us both a little queasy at the time. Now here's that forecast map. Note in the Gulf of Mexico, we wrote 2-week tropical timeout. So we were predicting no activity in the tropics until at least September 4th. That's actually rather bold for us on Climate Watch, especially given this classic chart from the National Hurricane Center that shows the historical distribution of tropical storms and hurricanes in the Atlantic. The climatological peak of the season was yesterday, September 10th. And of relevance to the last 3 weeks, look at the big ramp up, at least on average, that starts in the second week of August, leading to the peak. That certainly did not happen this year. Until Francine formed on Monday, no storm had been named in the Atlantic since August 12th, when Ernesto was christened. The last time the period from August 13th to September 8th didn't feature a storm being named was 1968. Here's a look at the distribution of the number of storms named each year during that time period since 1968. That's 55 intervening years. The most common number of storms named from August 13th to September 8th was 5, with 4 close behind. So this is usually a very busy time in the tropical Atlantic. Now, in fairness, in 4 years, only 1 storm was named in that period, but at the other extreme, in 2 different years, including last year, 9 storms were named in that time. The average, by the way, is a little bit more than 4. So to have 0 named storms from August 13th to September 8th in the Atlantic is really unusual. So what was behind this period of tropical inactivity? One factor in August was likely the frequent puffs of Saharan dust that blew out into the Atlantic, a sign of a relatively warm layer of air at high altitudes that stabilizes the atmosphere, and also in this case speedy upper-level easterly winds that sheared the top off fledgling storms. Then there's an unusual positioning of a weather feature over North Africa that we can diagnose using the winds near the surface. Here's the average over the last 3 weeks or so. Now let me overlay what we call streamlines so you can easily visualize the wind. The zone where these winds converge, called the monsoon trough, is a typical breeding ground for areas of low pressure that then move out over the Atlantic and become tropical storms. Now, normally this feature is farther south, so that when disturbances head out into the Atlantic, they're over really warm water. But with this configuration, those disturbances emerge farther north over cooler water that's not as favorable for development. It's worth noting that because the monsoon trough has been so far north, parts of the western and southern Sahara Desert that rarely see rain have had some in the last month. When the next storm forms in the Atlantic, it will be named Gordon, a name that's been used 5 times previously in that ocean basin. Stay tuned. Our extended forecast is next.